Have you ever wondered what is the number one most essential skill out of all the skills that are needed in order to not only build a business that's robust, but to ensure that whatever happens with the global economy, with the world in general, you're going to be all right? It's the number one thing that, in my view, we were born to do. And yet so often it's derided, demeaned, diminished. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I learned it when I was very young, and I was lucky to do so, although I didn't realise it at the time, and it is to sell. Now, there's a book called To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink, which is very good. I think I would go a step further and say to sell is our duty. And I want to talk to you about not only how that sales career has developed for me, but how it can develop, more importantly, for you. So, as you may know, if you follow this channel or you watch my videos, I learned to sell when I was very young in Portobello Road, and I had wily professionals from all over the world come and negotiate with me as a little kid and use their best tactics to try and hammer me on the price of my father's antiquarian maps and prints. And I learned over the years, although I didn't know the name for it, about the importance of value and the truth of the value of those maps. So regardless of the games that those dealers played, and by golly, they played a few games, the value was inestimable, the value was unarguable. And ultimately, I didn't have to persuade or manipulate, I didn't have to do any fancy tricks. I simply had to hold on to the value of what it was that was in front of us both, that neither of us could really argue with in terms of its objective truth. And it's the same for you and I, my friend. If you are a member of the tribe of elders, and what do I mean by that? If you don't already know, I mean people who have got genuine expertise, something to give and to bring to this world. Perhaps you may be like me, over the age of 25. I know it's hard to believe, but you might have put on a few years, and in my case, a few pounds as well. And you've got that gift, whatever it might be for you. In my case, as you know, it's sales, which we're talking about today. And I've accumulated a number of skills over the decades that now I can pass on to others in the form of videos like this, and in other forms of courses and workshops, and my group that I run, The Crucible, which I'm so delighted about. Every week we make just wonderful discoveries together. All of that, in my view, is our duty. It is, in my view, a sales activity to bring our expertise to the world. And early on I learned about different ways that people tried to sell to me. Some of them very honourable, some of them very questionable. And I was, as a result, starting so young and being in such a great environment of Portobello Road with all of its quirky characters, I was in effect a natural salesperson. I was somebody who was often said, Howard, you could sell ice to Eskimos. But in a very good conversation I had yesterday with somebody I'm going to be doing a podcast with soon, so watch out for that. The important point about selling ice to Eskimos is, yes, I can do it. I know every sales trick and maneuver in the book, but I will only do it provided that the Eskimo needs the ice. Now, that was something that was pointed out in that discussion yesterday, and there has to be a need. All those dealers were dancing and cavorting and doing their tricks and tactics because they needed those maps in order to have their sales in their countries of origin, where those maps would be far more valuable than they were in London, in Portobello Road. And so by the sheer force of location, if they came from Japan and they had a map from the 1400s that showed Japan, it would be worth a fortune in Japan. So let's just take a step back and look at that first phase of sales, because there are 3 phases I want to talk to you about, each of which took me forward in understanding, and hopefully as you come along with me on this journey of the sales map, they will take you forward too. That first phase was about learning what I would call the rules of the game. There was the shocker, there was the walk away, there was the add it up and slash the price, there was the what if I do this and you do that negotiation. So learning those basic rules of the game for me is the equivalent of a musician learning their scales. Many people rail against the manipulative techniques of sales without actually knowing what those techniques are. That's a bit like railing against the piano as an instrument from the devil without actually knowing how to make a tune, how to play anything. It's very easy for us to criticise and carp at something we know little about. And it's an interesting phenomenon that people who criticise sales are often the ones who know least about it. I know a fair amount about sales now in my 65th year, and I've always considered sales to be honourable, pleasurable, joyful. And now, of course, as I said earlier, I consider sales to be our duty as experts, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later. But until I was in my mid-30s, I was a natural salesperson based on that understanding that I had picked up about the rules of the game. When I was in my mid-30s, funnily enough, I came here to Portugal, down in the south, in the Algarve region, to do my first ever sales training. And that was run by a wonderful American gentleman by the name of Greg Welsh. And as soon as I heard the words from Greg's mouth, I realised that what he was saying was absolute gold. It was literally money in the bank. And I was with a group of about 30, 50 hardened British sales professionals, many of whom had been in sales for many, many years. And Greg was a high energy, extremely enthusiastic, highly accomplished American. And I absolutely loved that training. I took to it, not that there are any ducks, like a proverbial duck to water. I realised in that moment that having studied as a professional actor and worked as a professional actor since I was about 19 and having been in sales since I was about 9, the two disciplines could come together and I could do Greg's job. And in fact, on day 1, as I remember it, I believe it was day 1, I rushed up to Greg at the end of the day and I said, Greg, I absolutely love what you are doing and I want to do your job. And Greg, to his credit, didn't say, oh, well done, Howard. Yes, off you go. Good luck, mate. No, he said, Howard, that's brilliant. I'm going to help you to do it. And the very next year, the man standing in the Algarve delivering the training was yours truly. And one of the main reasons for that was Greg's help. And the other reason was this. To my shock, dismay and bewilderment, when we went for a coffee break or sat down at lunch amongst my hardened British sales professionals, they were, this will never work in the United Kingdom. You can't ask people questions like that. They'll get offended. And I was shocked because I was hearing pure gold. Little dollar signs, pound signs were going up in my eyes because I realised that the techniques that Greg was imparting were just incredibly powerful and really going to be transformational for me. And yet, here were my very experienced sales professionals who were saying this will never work where we come from. And so the second factor that influenced my being hired as the sales trainer for that company was the fact that they wanted somebody British to, inverted commas, translate Greg's American way of expressing into British English, which wasn't at all a difficult job, because instead of saying, "What's your budget?" which Greg recommended, as a British person you could say, "Whereabouts are you on the scale of values here, where we have these go from 5,000 up to 30,000, whereabouts do you stand?" There are ways of doing it. It's called cultural adaptation. But what was undeniably, remarkably, and beautifully true was that those principles of establishing the money question in that example were true around the world. And so that was a leap for me. I was moving beyond just learning the rules of the game into having learned the scales, starting to play some really wonderful jazz and a little bit of classical music, because the questioning techniques that we learned, the fact that you moved people through a sale in a certain way and you progressed it, the way that you handled concerns, objections, questions from the client, the way that you could close and reclose and reclose, all of those things I had no idea about. I lapped them up like a cat laps up a bowl of cream. And then I went on to work with those professionals the next year. And then I went on to form a global sales training company. And here's the interesting thing. In every country around the world, I would have people come up to me and say, "You know, Howard, it's good training, but it will never work in our country. You just don't understand the Dutch. You don't understand the Israelis. You don't understand the British. You don't understand the French." Well, I do. I do understand that the sales professional themselves is resisting change. And so as sales professionals, which I believe we are, if we are elders who are seeking to bring our business into being in this digital landscape, or indeed in the inverted commas real world, we need to adapt, we need to grow, and we need to be open to the idea that things will work if we understand not the specific language that the person expresses their truths by, but the principles by which they operate. Because let's face it, folks, the principles of human nature are pretty much the same wherever we go in the world. People want food, clothing, shelter. They want to take care of their loved ones now and in the future. They want to take care of themselves now and in the future. And if we can meet those needs in whatever way, then we will be able to sell to those people in a way that makes sense for them. So phase 2 was really learning how to play a few very, very good tunes, and that skill took me around the world and gave me all kinds of fascinating experiences, which I will go into, no doubt, in future videos. And then the third phase happened in my 50s when I moved to Shanghai, because Shanghai demanded something very different of me. It demanded not only that I deal with people who had millions in their portfolios or often their bank accounts, but who were also extremely skeptical or cynical of my profession in Shanghai, which was as a senior wealth manager. In fact, the words wealth manager used to send some of them running for the proverbial hills. So I had never faced that degree of cynicism. I'd always really been taken as somebody pretty decent, honest and straightforward. But I knew something was up. When I first arrived in Shanghai, I had only one contact, a wonderful, again, American chap by the name of, was it Brian? I can't remember, sorry, Brian. It wasn't Brian, but never mind, that's my age showing. And he said to me, Howard, you're never going to last in that profession of wealth management. You know, people are going to hate you, and you're a nice chap. Well, I did last, and I lasted 10 years. But in order to overcome that really strong cynicism, and by the way, that cynicism that the expatriate community in Shanghai and across China, and indeed as my career developed across Asia, that degree of cynicism that they held wasn't based on some undefined experience. No, many of them had been ripped off, lied to by unscrupulous financial, in inverted commas, advisors who were only really interested in their own commission, who hadn't explained properly the intricacies of contracts that people signed in their naivety, and then found to their horror were extremely detrimental when they tried to cancel them, etc., etc. And one famous case in Shanghai, two idiotic advisors decided to go into a hotel, and this is idiotic on many levels, go into a hotel in the reception and steal the reception book so they could get the contact information of the foreigners in the book. Now, why was that ridiculous? Well, number one, people staying in a hotel are visitors usually, and they're not the kind of people that are going to stay in the country, and therefore they're not really potential clients. And it was idiotic, number two, because there was a big fat camera in the hotel that caught them on camera, and they subsequently got deported. And then number three, it was dumb, because if you steal and lie your way into any profession, sooner or later one would hope you're going to get caught out, and sooner or later one would hope your career's going to be over. So it was dumb on many levels, but it created this ambience in Shanghai that, oh, Howard, you know, all you guys, all you're interested in is your own, feathering your own nest. And I had people who were getting on perfectly well with me at an event. We were having drinks and laughing and joking, and then they found out what I did, and they told me to F off. Or as Woody Allen said, go forth and multiply, only not in those words. So I had to overcome that, and I had to deal with extremely high net worth individuals. So my skill set had to rise to meet that challenge. But by combining my penchant for drama with the sales skills that I'd inherited, and by studying a new level of sales skills with trainers who came in to train us from all over the world, some of whom had dealt in this world for decades, by learning and absorbing all of that, I put together a signature way of working. I went from absolutely hating networking, for example, to becoming known as the king of networking in Shanghai. And I still have wonderful friends as a result of building those relationships and building the skill set that now I'm able to impart as a member of the tribe of elders to my group, the Crucible, for example, to individual clients if I work one-on-one with them, and to a lesser degree, because of this medium and because we're already at 20 minutes in these videos. So those lessons, those three phases, I'd like you to think about. What are the phases of development in your particular area of expertise? And what were the very first things that you learned that you now take absolutely for granted? In my case, those basic rules that I learned in Portobello, for example, the shocker, the walk away, the what if you do this and I do that negotiation, and many more, are often where I will begin now with somebody who is scared of sales, or who doesn't know how to sell, or who is very skeptical about sales as a process. And now, to sum up, why is it our duty to sell? Why is it our inherent birthright to sell? If you can help somebody out in the world with your expertise who is in need of that help, just as those dealers needed those maps in order to have a career as a map dealer in their countries, if you have that map, that key that somebody else needs, it is your duty, my friend, to tell the world, I have a map, I have a key, come and get it, folks. Because otherwise, what's going to happen? One of three things. Number one, that person will try to draw their own map. And if you've ever tried to draw your own map, it's tough. And you're liable, if you're drawing a map of Japan, to put one city where another city should be, or to mess up the coastline, and the map becomes useless. Nobody can really navigate by it. Number two, they will go to some snake oil salesperson who sells them some reproduction map and tells them it's an original. In other words, it will be somebody else's ripped off material. Nothing like the quality of what it is that you can provide, because you are one of the tribe of elders. Just like me, you've been through phases and iterations and refinements of that expertise that make you one of a kind, and make your work one of a kind, and make your value inestimable for the people who need it. And number three, they may just throw their hands in the air and give up entirely. I see many really accomplished experts, sadly, throw their hands up in the air and say, I never want to sell anyone anything. If they say to me, I'll have to think about it, that's it, it's over, I let them go. And I'm just so sad, and I'm horrified, and I'm dismayed by that, because I know that if they would only be open, as those British professionals were not to Greg, if they would only be open to the idea of embracing some even simple playing of the scales of sales, they would not only increase their own profit margin, of course, but they would help those other people to buy into their world. It's my view that it is our duty to take our clients off the market, to get them invested into us and into our programs, our courses, whatever it might be, whatever our method of delivery is. And that is why I have created this channel, to make you aware of these things. I consider it my duty. I may not always want to make a video. I may not always know what that video should be about, but I am committed every single week to bringing you one long form video. At the moment, for some reason, YouTube has decided to stop my short videos from being shown. I think it's because I went away to Paris a couple of weeks ago, and I decided to schedule 20 short videos to go out one day after another, and now the jolly old algorithm thinks I'm a robot. Well, I ain't a robot, as you can see from my unrobotic, wrinkly brow. So, to sum up, every expert I know has gone through phases from basically playing the scales, learning that, to creating a few tunes, and then ultimately you could argue to creating symphonies. And it is their duty on this planet to publish those symphonies, to make people aware that that music is available to them. And so I'd like you to consider the phases of your own expertise and how you can bring best expression to those in this crazy, noisy, digital old world, so that you fulfill your duty and you bring your sales to bear upon your expertise, whatever that level is. And if you want to improve your sales, of course, have a chat with me. Maybe you can join the Crucible. I don't know. I only let certain people in because I'm very protective of it. There are currently 6 people in. It is my plan to have 12. So I want 6 more people, good and true, to join me. And more important than me, the other wonderful people in that group. And together, as the tribe of elders, we will bring our expertise to this world.